Ammar Campa-Najjar, candidate for Chula Vista Mayor's chair, really Mayor's office this year of 2022. Election day just a little bit away. Ammar, thank you so much for being with us. We've got a couple questions for you and your opponent, and we'll just jump right in. So question
Great.
number one is about homelessness, which has developed into a pretty big topic in Chula Vista over the past couple of months, especially the summer with the situation at Harborside Park, as well near the school. We know there isn't an easy fix. We want to know, what will you do to address the homelessness issue in Chula Vista? 5 minutes starting now. Go for it.
Yeah, you're right. On many of our biggest challenges as a city, whether it's public safety and reducing crime or housing opportunities or homelessness, it's going to take a new, different approach. We're going to need to have bold leadership. We're going to need to have an ambitious agenda to deal with these problems. Frankly, the homelessness issue has escalated and worsened over years. Didn't just happen overnight. The pandemic surely made it worse as people were suffering through economic hardship. And I place a lot of that at the failed leadership of my opponent, who's had 16 years to solve this problem. It's only gotten worse under his watch. So what would I do as mayor? It's what I'm doing right now. On day one, we're going to have a ready and willing working coalition with the County Board of Supervisors, Nathan Fletcher and Nora Vargas and David Alvarez, our assemblyman, and our governor, all of whom have endorsed me, but even more importantly, are willing to partner with me on day one to bring us the resources we need. So what does that look like? Number one, all of South County does not have an emergency shelter to house and relocate those homeless folks who, are doing encampments at Harborside Park right next to a school, right? Where children have to go to school and see needles on the ground and overdoses and crime and violence and things that no child should see. We need to relocate those folks where they could get help. And that shelter could be somewhere in South County, not necessarily in Chula Vista, but somewhere that serves all of South County. That's number one. Number two is getting our resources from the county, because know this, that Chula Vista, our city, doesn't have the budget, nor does it collect the taxes to fund mental health services. That is from the county, right? And we pay taxes as Chula Vistans to the county for those services. So getting those services, those resources from the county for mental health services for the homeless, right? But we also know that homelessness is not just a product of mental health issues. It has many different causes, whether it's domestic abuse, unaccompanied minors, economic hardship, PTSD from veterans serving our country. There are many different causes. So an emergency shelter is part of that, mental health is part of that, but also housing. We have a big housing imbalance in our city. According to RENA numbers, which are like the regional housing numbers and needs that we have, we're 11,000 homes short to meet our housing needs. That's a mix of middle, lower, and upper income housing. So we need to deal with that aspect. So housing is a third element of dealing with homelessness. And then last but not least, enforcement. Making sure that our law enforcement has the ability, is empowered to enforce the laws on the books. So if you commit a crime, there's consequences to that. And the city of San Diego has adopted this progressive enforcement. And I'd like to see us adopt that here in Chula Vista and empower our law enforcement to exercise their authority on those who are committing crimes, violent crimes. And then working with the governor on the newly passed Care Court. So for those who are severely mentally ill, who can't take care of themselves, who can't lead lives of self-sufficiency because of their mental health issues, they would be under the stewardship of somebody, of a state official, employee who is a caregiver to somebody like that. So those are the top issues, right? Dealing with homelessness is going to take an emergency shelter. It's going to take mental health resources. It's going to take building more housing for those who are unhoused. It's going to take law enforcement. And it's going to take us working on the state level on things like Care Court. If we do that together with the coalition that I could build on day one, we could help not solve homelessness. We can't say we could solve it, but we could surely manage it and reduce it and make it less of an issue for residents. And this is going to require a kind of leadership that's a combination of compassion and accountability, right? Humanity and also enforcement. And I think as mayor, I could do that and bring that coalition. It's not just about me and what I'll do, but what I'll do with the team that I build, the coalition that I put together to really tackle this issue in a meaningful way, in a way that my opponent hasn't been able to in 16 years.
Ammar, you've got about 35 seconds on the clock. I wanted to ask you about seniors. We've noticed there's a sizable population of the homeless population in Chula Vista. What can we talk about them and what do for them?
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. And so what I would do is build more senior housing, right? Make sure that there's more opportunity for directed towards that specific demographic of seniors who maybe don't have, younger folks, their kids, dependents, maybe they are just, never grew a family, and that's heartbreaking. So that's where I think government has to play an active role in making sure that there's a room over every head, including those who are seniors.
All right, Ammar Campa-Najjar, finishing off question number one. The timer goes off right there, 5 minutes on that one. Let's go ahead and on to question or topic number two is development in Chula Vista. We've got a lot of it going on. We've got the Bayfront redevelopment project in the works. Starting with that, how will you see that into completion? One more time, 5 minutes on the clock on the topic of development. Go for that one first.
It's a great question. The Bayfront development is going to be very exciting. It's the biggest Bayfront in the Western Seaboard, 535 acres. We're going to have that beautiful 12-story resort and hotel and a convention center. And as you know, Chula Vista has been known to be a bedroom community or a drive-by city on your way to Tijuana, right? So how do we change that culture? How do we make Chula Vista a destination city where people spend their dollars here, grow our city's revenue, generate wealth for our city so we could circulate it towards, our community and not just be seen as the drive-by city? I think the Bayfront and that development will be a big proof of concept for other people who are seeing Chula Vista to see, is it open for business? Is it ready for prime time investments? So my priority is going to make sure that we do this in a timely fashion. We cannot have 25 more years. I was young when we started talking about the Bayfront. I lived off of J Street on Woodlawn and Kearney in West Chula Vista, and I remember walking every day with my grandfather to go, walk over and see the fish come out in the morning and the Bayfront, how this was going to be a great thing. And it hadn't happened for almost 30 years. So we need leadership that could meet this moment, who could really maximize what the Bayfront can be for us. There's talks about a sports arena where the Duke Energy plant used to be. There's obviously talks about a university. My hope is that if we really accomplish this Bayfront on time and on budget by 2025 of October, literally 3 years from today, that we could use that as a proof of concept to generate more revenue for our city. That is huge. But of course, also be mindful of, with that development comes the rising prices of homes. And are we going to price out locals who've been here for 2-3 generations like myself? How do we create a Bayfront that works for Chula Vistans, that reinvests in our communities, in our roads, in our infrastructure, in our housing opportunities, in our schools, right? So my big priority will make sure that the West is benefiting the most from that West, Bayfront, and then hopefully use that as a stepping stone to get a university or that sports arena, and that will generate more revenue. And more revenue means more resources to take on homelessness, to take on public safety, to hire 40 more police officers, to create more mixed income housing and mixed use development that will serve the community. But we won't get there with the same recycled politicians, with the same recycled playbook. We have to try things differently. Otherwise, we'll be left with the same outcome. Missed opportunity after missed opportunity. What I bring to the table is a coalition, is a new set of skills and experience, bring back our federal dollars to create public-private partnerships and really get these things working. My goal is to make sure that the corridors leading to the Bayfront are stimulated, that the small businesses, the retailers, the restaurants are ready for prime time when all these people are going to be coming to our Bayfront for the first time ever, that they don't just go to the Bayfront and then leave and never invest in our small Hispanic and diverse business communities. So that's going to be my top priority. It's a great revenue generator. And I think it's important that, we pass the baton to the next generation of leaders in our city to focus on the next 20 years, which includes the development of the Bayfront and the university, and not just reliving the past 20 years. We have to get out of this time loop that we've been in for 25 years and not actually getting these things done. So as mayor, I'm looking forward to working with the new city council, right? Fresh faces with new vision and new optimism and ambitious agendas to really make sure that Chula Vista has all the opportunities it needs to thrive, and make sure that, 80,000 people a day commute out of Chula Vista looking for work. into San Diego. Every day, 80,000 people go to work in San Diego. How do we turn that traffic around? How do we bring more jobs to our city? And how do we make sure we have a Chula Vista where more of us want to stay living here rather than leaving here because opportunities are elsewhere? My
Mark,
goal.
real quick, I want to make sure I ask you about housing in this
Yes.
development question. You've touched on it. I want to make sure you have some time to talk about that. Affordable housing, affordable home ownership in this development process. How do we get there and what can communities look forward to? You've got about 30 seconds left, please.
Yeah, well, so we have to build more inventory. We have to work with developers to make the front end costs lower. It's very prohibitive in Chula Vista with the permitting process, ease the permitting process. 40% of housing costs of building a home is government. So how do we reduce the red tape and regulation to make it easier to build, not harder to build in Chula Vista and throughout our state, frankly? And then also there's the governor passed $600 million in help aid to help first-time home buyers. And I want to get some of that 600 million to help first-time home buyers, new families get their first home.
Mar, that's time on that block right there. Question number 3, why you and not your competitor? Why should voters turn out to support you? And what realistic changes can those voters expect to see if you are elected? 5 minutes, one more time on there. Go for it.
Yeah, my opponent has made a lot of empty promises and broken words. You know, his inaction is why we have to shut down Harborside Park and we have homelessness go up. We have crime has gone up. The cost of housing has gone up. The cost of living has gone up under his 16 years of failed leadership. If we continue to support that, we're going to continue to have the same outcomes, broken promises and empty words, you know, missed opportunity after missed opportunity. What I bring is a fresh face, a fresh approach, new leadership, a coalition building type leadership to deal with our issues. If we want to hire 40 more police officers, we have to grow our economy. If we want to improve our schools, we have to grow our economy. If we want to improve housing opportunities, we have to grow our economy. If we want to deal with homelessness, we have to grow our economy. And instead, my opponent has taken Chula Vista and made it the second highest taxed city in the county because of his lack of meaningful leadership, his lack of vision. He's asked Chula Vista to shoulder the burden time after time instead of him shouldering the burden of being imaginative and creative and building the coalitions to actually get this done. So my hope as the mayor of Chula Vista is to grow our revenue, to put our city on a better financial footing so I could lower taxes and increase opportunity, build more housing, get a substation in East Chula Vista for the police so that people could feel safe in both sides of the 805. And tackle homelessness in a real meaningful way. And with me, it's not just me you get as a mayor. You'll have a ready and willing coalition from the governor to the county board of supervisors and our city council, all working together harmoniously to deliver for our city. John McCann is not a uniter, he's a divider. And John McCann, for 16 years, has made promises that he hasn't kept. We need a fresh, new approach, a passing of the baton, and new leadership to finally deliver on these long-time commitments that's been made to all of us. As the only candidate who's lived in both the west and the east side of Chula Vista, the only candidate who has ready and willing coalitions on day one, and the only candidate who has a fresh and different approach, I think we're on the dawning of a new day, and that requires new leadership.
Ammar, you still got 2 minutes and 40 seconds left in this block. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about when it comes to why voters should come out to support you and what they can expect to see when you get into office?
I think, you know, on day one of my big commitments is to get a university endowment program going. So, you know, philanthropists from around San Diego County can make investments into that endowment program. So we could finally get that university because we've been talking about it for 30 years. And a university will get us new industries, new jobs, new housing opportunities. I really do believe it's the key to all of this growth. I mean, look at La Jolla before UCSD. It wasn't much. And then UCSD came in and that created so many opportunities for La Jolla. We could have the same thing in Chula Vista. And we have, you know, we're 300,000 people in Chula Vista. We're bigger in population than Salt Lake City. We're bigger in population than Buffalo, New York. We're bigger in population than Newark. And we're almost as big as the city of Cincinnati. We are a big city with big dreams. And we have to have an ambitious agenda from a mayor and a city council that will get us to that destination. And I'm uniquely positioned to do that because I have the roots. I've lived here. I'm right now living in the home. I'm here. You're watching me from the home that I went to Eastlake High School from, Southwestern Community College, San Diego State, worked at Eastlake Community Church. Before that, in 1993, I was on the West Side. I know the disparity because I've lived it. And I think that, coupled with my federal experience to bring us federal dollars, working in the highest level of government, I know what high level functioning government needs to look like. And it doesn't look like shutting down Harborside Park because we couldn't deal with homelessness. It doesn't look like increases in crime. It doesn't look like, skyrocketing housing costs. We can determine our own destiny as a city if we have the right leadership at the helm. And I do believe that I, along with my colleagues who will be entering city council next year, will meet this moment and then write a new chapter for Chula Vista that represents all of us. And that's why voters should vote for me this November 8th.
All right, Ammar, you've got about 30 seconds left. Would you like to continue, or we can move on to the next one? Totally your choice of time.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
You got it. All right, so we will cancel on that one. And then we have 2 minutes on the clock for our fourth topic of, as we zero in on election day, what would you like the voter to know? This is your time to use however you'd like to address them. 2 minutes on the clock, starting now.
Yeah, I know you've heard a lot of negative attacks back and forth. I've tried to keep my campaign positive. My opponent's had 16 years of a record, and instead he's resorting to desperate negative attacks. And that tells you everything you need to know about his record. What this election's about, it's not about the last 20 years, it's about the next 20 years of Chula Vista's future. And I think that destination, it's on the horizon. It's for all of us. So, I hope voters will see past the negativity and really just compare me and my opponent on how we've approached this campaign, what our vision is, who will provide meaningful leadership. And again, this is a Democratic city that, is going to have a lot of Democratic electeds. And John would be the odd one out that wouldn't be able to work with anybody. On day one, we'll be able to set aside partisanship because we'll all be working together to deliver real results for our city, to lower the cost of housing, to improve public safety and reduce crime, to deal with homelessness in a real way, to grow our local economy. That's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on the issues. And I'm confident that we'll win this race on the issues by calling on the better angels of our nature, not the most cynical side of us that resorts to negative attacks. It's unbecoming of my opponent, but hopefully in a couple of weeks, we won't have to deal with this negative stuff. We could focus on moving our city forward. And I hope with your help, I'll be ready to serve on day one. Our most trusted public servants, our firefighters, our first responders have called on me to serve. They trust me with these incredible responsibilities, and I hope you will too. And on day one, we'll be able to lead the city towards greatness together. Thank you.
All right, Ammar Campa-Najjar, you've got 8 seconds on the clock. We'll let it run out for you. If you'd like to say,
let's save it. Yeah, no, ahead of time and under budget. That's going to be.
There we go. All right, that is 2 minutes on our last one. Ammar Campa-Najjar running for the seat of Chula Vista Mayor in the coming elections. Ammar, thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.